Okay, so we have the receiver now all set up. I checked that I only had one wire connected to the ESCs that was giving it power. I'm not using a Polulu or step down transformer here until I get the ones I've ordered. I've ordered a few of the micro power distribution boards, but for now I'm using the ESC power. So we're going to check that, make sure our board's pretty much straight in there before we go for a test flight. I'm using adhesive double-sided tape, so not always the best. Always good to use a little glue stick even, and fasten your board down with that if it's not being bound by screws. Mine is not being held down by screws, so I want to work out the hole placement before I do that, and we wanted to see if it flew the way it was. So, and the frame is stiff enough. I'm pretty happy with the frame, and the True X form is much more responsive than the H quad, I think. I might be mistaken, but it seems a little bit more snappy. I'm going to put this on here. I don't like having my receiver on the bottom at all, so I'm waiting for 2DR or D4R receivers, the smaller ones for PPM upgrade, so we'll get into that later. Let's tuck our wires in somewhere, behind the camera perhaps, like that. Catching this. This is not going to hold, so unless I find glue stick, I think I'm going to be a little bit messed up for my maiden, perhaps. Take off the excessive tape here. I don't want to double up on that. Yeah, it's not sticking today. So let's get this off while we're waiting for a solution here. Looking for glue stick. Madly, you always got one somewhere lying around, I think. I could use epoxy, but I don't really want to use epoxy on this, so it's a bit too permanent. Now we could also use a strap. We could strap it, or we could fasten it with a strap to the arm bolts, putting a tape across, a band across it or something, but still it might move around a bit. So let's get it as much as we can on these arms here, on the Kevlar base. Not too secure there. Tuck in our video cam excessive wire. Just using parts that I can use on other things, so I didn't want to cut them custom to this size. So we're going to tuck that in. We're going to put our post back in. We'll get a new one and put that in, and that'll hold the wires into the frame so they stay away from our props. Line it up. Allen key. It's great. I gotta admit, the Emax motors came with Allen keys in every pack, and it's really nice to have a lot of extra Allen keys lying around, especially for standard sizes. Not sure. Now I need a washer on this one. And I brought some washers here for the arm edge, because I added this top plate after, and I didn't cut any of this on CNC, so I'm just using it as a testing bed of my measurements and different ideas of how to assemble the arms, which are super cheap, and still have them super strong for your use in everyday flying. So, not that I'm really planning on selling these, but I do have people that order stuff and want me to cut stuff for them, so that's a large part of what I'm doing. I'm not selling a line of quads as much as a service to build and design them. Marvel, we're going to have some footage maybe from some of the local Marvel productions here too, hopefully. We'll see how that goes. But let's get this washer on. We want to have a washer so that we can actually have a bit of support on the edge. I'm right on the edge of the carbon fiber arm, so it's sort of not seating totally perfectly. So I'm going to put the weight of the half of the carbon fiber edge of the arm and use 2 washers to act as support for that. So if I can get this on in one piece. Another importance of soldering and making sure your joints are tough is that then when you're manhandling your quad in the field or wherever to fix it even, you won't run into breaking something or wondering if you pulled a wire too hard, because you'll be able to pull on those wires a little bit or have them move around without too much bad chance or too much of a chance of it coming apart, because your solder joints will be solid. And if you ever try to rip apart a good quality piece of wire, you can tell it's not that easy. You can strip it easily if it's plastic, but to snap it in half, not the easiest thing to do. So now I need to figure out where my input for the camera is. So I'm going to pull out this JST connector and confirm that it is going into the Fat Shark harness, which it is, directly into the Fat Shark harness. If you're in doubt of what your connector is, always plug in the lower voltage. 5 volts won't let your camera run if it's a 12 volt camera, but if your camera is a 5 volt camera like this one, then at least the 5 volts will make it work and you won't have plugged in 12 volts and fried your camera. So always start with the lower voltage and plug in the lower voltage. If you think it might be a lower voltage, plug that in. If it doesn't work, then obviously you've plugged in a 5 volt connection and you need to find a 12 volt lead or the one that you had before. So there you go, that's now attached. I've got lots of room to tuck my wire back in. I should, because I definitely had to pull it out. And these wires, technically I would like to have them going behind the post. So let's do this. Let's pull these out again, just gently out. This is a very good connection. JST to cut down servo lead. Much more snug than the standard JST, but polarity option not there, so you really have to pay attention when you're plugging them in. Now I'm going to try to get it around this post here, and I think I've done it. Not the best pair of pliers for this. I have really nice needle nose pliers here, but we'll just try to grab it with this. It might not work. No. Pinky. There we go. Pinkies are good. That's what they're for. They're not that useful in everyday life, but pinkies can be good. There you go. Okay, so let's get these hooked up. Red to red, red to light yellow. Always, if you have to use a color, then go with a lighter color for positive so that you can remember it. Like a white and a black. White would be positive. On a British motorcycle, white would be negative, but on most electronics, white would be positive, black would be negative. And there's our 5 volts for our fat guppy cam, the old-fashioned 600 TBL, which is pretty weak in the extreme sun changes, but better than a lot of cameras at that size. Now we're going to tape down our ESC again, because one of our ESCs had come loose. This one. We're going to tape down our wires, which we know are connected now. So what little electrical tape I have here, I'm going to tape those wires down. this is where it's important that you have not got solder sharpies coming through your shrink tubing, because this is when you tape it down to the arm, then you're going to end up causing a short, guaranteed. So you might not even notice it, but it's going to be there. Lift the plate up here a bit. Push this wire back in there. This should be ready to go, I think. Let's see if we have some props here. Yep, should be ready to go. One more prop. Breaking props pretty quickly, that's for sure. It's going to be a long video, folks. You can watch it over a couple of days. Probably won't be doing this again, but it's going to take hours to upload too. We're looking for our other prop. Hopefully it's a clockwise prop we needed. There we go, one. Counterclockwise. Clockwise. And counterclockwise. We need a spacer for that one. So we'll get a spacer. My small screwdriver too. Oh, there is a spacer in there, but it's the wrong size. Let's pop that out. Let's put in the one that fits. There we go. Maybe we'll get 4mm lock nuts tomorrow for my Tiger motors, and then we'll put the Tiger motors on this micro 480 gram powerhouse. Because I don't think that the Emax motors are much lighter than the Tiger motors. The FPV model motors are quite heavy though. So those I'm going to reserve for a 6 or 7 inch props, and go for a true endurance machine with that. Yep. Now we've got all our prop nuts. There we go. Don't turn it on. We're going to take the camera outside, folks. So, no risk of getting chopped up. I don't know. Did anybody see that guy who had the mini quad hit him in the forehead? I don't look at stuff like that on the internet too often. So, I heard that some guy got a mini quad in the face or something. That was the word on the street or on the internet, interwebs. Okay, let's see if this battery. Maybe we'll use this 3000 mAh, because we're not going to do any zipping around right now. We're just testing. So let's maybe use that one. And put it on this side like this. Hook up our wire like this, or battery strap. Now, we are going to have to find some glue stick for the camera, but for now we're going to use our good buddy electrical tape. And I have a tongue here to put it around, so tongue on the bottom plate.